The countdown to kickoff continues. Man, Sam, how many teams are left? I see that we're down to Washington today. Looking forward to that breakdown. We'll talk to Jenks in more detail coming up at the top of the hour, but we're starting to get to those high win totals. Win total of 9.5. Is it, like a handful of teams left here?
Well, judging by the board at BetMGM, after the Commanders going from bottom to top, Lions, Chiefs, Eagles, Bills, Ravens. That's it.
It was a 6.5 win total a year ago. So everything goes right. Jayden Daniels is a superstar they were praying that he was going to be. They have new ownership, new quarterback, new OC, which they are able to keep. Important, I think, even though as people get more tape on Cliff Kingsbury, they kind of figure out what his game is. It was perfect last year. How's it going to work in year number 2? They were able to keep him. Dan Quinn did a great job. Like some people thought there's a ceiling to Quinn, and maybe they end up being right, but year 1 was phenomenal. You are coming off of Ron Rivera, but they hit on everything. Everything. So when people bet on regression, meaning negative regression, there are a certain number of checklists, right? The Commanders hit them all, man. So I understand why a lot of people that kind of look at the numbers are saying this is not a repeatable performance. The Commanders are well aware of that, and that's why they were proactive in the offseason. They go out and they get Laramie Tunsil to be their left tackle. Let's bring in Deebo Samuel. We need some help on the outside. Their no-name receivers are gone, and they're like, okay, well, let's replace some of those guys. Yami Brown's gone. Zacchaeus, people excited with the Bears because he's had a great preseason. Okay. They move on from Jonathan Allen, a terrific interior defensive lineman, but they make some big adds. They add to that D-line with Kinlaw. And I mentioned those players on offense. We'll see about Deebo. I don't know. I mean, he got paid and doesn't seem to be the same guy as he's been dealing with some injuries and some other stuff going on. But now he's a great quarterback. So we shall see. But when you're with Shanahan, you really are in a great situation. Now, 12 wins last year. They don't win the division. That was, of course, the Eagles. They nearly double the win total. We always bring up what the Vikings did with a win total of 6.5. Just as impressive, Washington, win total of 6.5. They win 12. So that's why it bumps up 3. Got to get to one-score games, though. One-score games, they have a record of 8-4. The close wins, 1, 3, 3, 3, 4, 5, 5, and 6. Whole lot of them. 8 of their 12 wins were by one score. And here's the big one, Sammy. 4th down conversion rate. Maybe unlike something we've ever seen, because in recent seasons, we all know that teams are willing to go for it on 4th down a whole lot more. So when you talk about them hitting at a very high clip, I don't know that it's even comparable to anything we've seen before, because they had 23 4th down attempts. They converted 20 of them. 87% conversion rate on 4th down. 8-4 record in one-score games. They know they need to get better, and the schedule is getting tougher.
It screams regression, but here's my first hesitation. They have an MVP caliber quarterback. If you want to talk Minnesota, they're going to start a first-year quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. And I like Minnesota, for the record. Everybody knows that. I like them to make the playoffs. I bet that at plus 105, even money, depending on where you got it. I have a little bit of both. But if you look at the markets for MVP, there's only 4 players that have shorter odds than Jayden Daniels. And you know who they are. Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. That's it. And I wrote a story about this for Fox about the Commanders because they're clicking, as you would imagine. And I talked to a guy who's really close to the team. And here's his direct quote about Jayden Daniels. It's tough to find anyone in the building who thinks last year was a fluke. It's a pretty powerful quote. Now, maybe they're worse in one-score games. Maybe the defense shows some more warts. Maybe the offense isn't as efficient. And also, you have to consider there's a full year of tape on this offense. I don't know that it matters, though. If you think about how Jayden Daniels has flipped the switch, it started with a very, very interesting idea of how to train and how to be ready for game-like situations. Jayden Daniels, when he was at LSU, they implemented virtual reality.
Yep.
And what I mean by that is they throw the stuff on him and they play it at super speed. So rather than get reps in practice, which he does, I mean, he's out there on the practice field, but they do a lot of behind door, high speed virtual reality where Kingsbury and company are able to throw way more at him and make him adapt and make him play on the run and play sort of street ball, which we all used to play. Nothing better than calling hike and trying to make a play on the playground. Well, he did it in college at LSU. And the first year he had the VR, he won the Heisman Trophy. Okay, comes to the NFL. They take the VR to the next level. The source told me when they challenge him mentally, they get more out of him. And they do these drills at super speed now in DC. So they're able to script all kinds of things like, let's bring this safety, let's bring a corner blitz. And he's in this room with the virtual reality reacting on the fly. So his ability to see the future before it happens is almost, I don't want to say otherworldly because that's hyperbolic, but his ability to adapt on the fly is very, very next level. And that's because they practice this and they train him that way. So when I heard about this, I didn't know much about it. Like I knew at LSU they did a lot of VR, but they said that the stuff that they threw at him last year, most quarterbacks wouldn't even sniff a sense of accomplishment. He's thriving on this virtual reality at super speed. That doesn't necessarily translate to success on the NFL Sunday playing field.
Well,
but when you hear that, does that kind of change the way you think? Because it changed the way I think about it.
I'm so glad you brought this up. And it reminds me of an interview that I listened to last summer. And I kind of listened. I thought it was cool. And I'll explain why for a number of reasons. But I didn't think about it and say, okay, he's going to be so far ahead of everybody else. But then we saw the results. And I don't know that that's the reason. I think it's part of it. Do you know, I don't know how much you looked into this. Do you know who was behind that? The VR stuff when he was at LSU? Was
it Joe Brady?
No, it was, you'll know the name because of your baseball background, but maybe a lot of people won't. It's a guy they call the Thomas Edison of at LSU. They call him the Thomas Edison of sports tech. It is Jack Marucci, the guy that started Marucci Bats.
The bat company.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah. So he went into, I heard an interview with him where he was going into great detail about it, and it sounded unbelievable. Totally next level stuff. I thought it was really cool, but I didn't know how much it was going to help him. But like, think back when he was at LSU, how much better was he than, say, Arizona State? And some of that is progression and, learning more and all that. But I think that is really cool, and it is not talked about enough. So this is probably, and I'm sure a lot of teams are doing it now, but I thought it was really cool. The guy that started this bat company, Jack Marucci, he was behind all this, and he's been working at LSU for a number of years and helping these quarterbacks. Makes me think about Nussmeier, doesn't it? A couple years of this.
It does. It does. And I first heard it because I'm on the phone with this guy, and he's talking about computers and VR, and I'm like, yeah, that doesn't matter. And he said, dude, it matters. He said that Jayden Daniels is improvising in these drills like a seasoned vet, not like a second-year player. And this is not a guy that is going to benefit from the team being good. He's not a team employee, so he's not feeding me, this goodwill bill. Think about this as a rookie, because we're always going to compare these two. As a rookie, Caleb Williams completed 62.5% of his passes. As a rookie, Jayden Daniels completed 69% of his passes. That might not sound like a lot, but 6.5% is a huge deal in our racket. To be 6.5 percentage points better than somebody, especially when that somebody went first in the draft, that's absurd. So we start there. We start with the quarterback. The offense got better. The defense got better. The coaching staff is still intact. The front office is clearly trying to build around him. I'm not going to say win the NFC, win the Super Bowl, because you already know my NFC champ and my Super Bowl champ. But are we overthinking this as a collective and looking at this win total and seeing 9.5 and thinking, well, they got to go under because they overachieved? What if they're better this year on offense? What if they're more efficient? They're winning 10 games.
I just think back to that division. First gut, what place will they be in?
Second.
So you got Dallas in third?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, the Parsons thing has changed a lot for me. I'm sorry, it has.
I get it. Why would it not? And he's as impactful as almost anyone on that team. Obviously, second most impactful player. I get it. That's the tough part. Okay, maybe the answer is neither, but if you had to pick, and listeners know that you're higher on Minnesota than most. If you had to pick one of those two teams that had a win total a year ago of 6.5 and greatly exceeded those expectations, just smoked them, right? The market was wrong on both of those teams. If one team comes back down to earth, which team is it more likely to be? If I'm going to answer my own question, I would think you have to point to the team that has the questions at quarterback, because Washington doesn't. And with all this said, Sammy, I'm going back a year, and everything you said is a fair point, but it's everything that was said about the Houston Texans last year. The exact same stuff. They knew there was going to be a regression. They improved the roster because they knew this was coming, and it just still ended up falling apart. Not saying that that's going to happen with the Washington Commanders, but I understand why that comp is there.